All right, everyone, welcome to Something in the Wild. I believe it's episode 22. It's a good thing whenever I'm now starting to forget what episode I'm on. I think that's a good sign. Today I'm out here on the Youghiogheny River doing a float, doing some fly fishing, and just having a good old time. So hopefully I'm going to take you guys along for the ride here for a little bit. I got a nice calm section of water, and it's nice and slow, so I'm just going to have my bobber, or my indicator, as fly fishermen like to say. I'm just going to have it sitting out there with my nymphs, and hopefully I catch a fish while I'm podcasting. I think that'd be pretty sick. So today I want to just cover a couple things. I've been looking a lot. I guess I should give you guys some background information. So this weekend, me and a couple buddies, Lenny and we went out to Raystown Lake and did a little camping trip. It was really, really cool. We took our kayaks, and how this campground's set up is there's no road access. It's only water access. So you either have to boat there or you have to kayak there. Or you can walk, but it's like a 5-mile walk. So we opted for the 2.5-mile kayak ride instead. And it was pretty terrible. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Oh, it looks like it's starting to rain here. Might get a little bit of drizzle as well. Wasn't terrible, but the wind was brutal. So you got to paddle out there, and Raystown's a pretty big lake. 28 miles of shoreline, I believe. I think it's 28 miles long, like 100 some miles of shoreline. Absolutely huge lake. But anyway, spent our time out there, did a little camping trip, cooked up some food on the fire. We were catching some catfish at night. Just an all-around great experience. But what I was getting to is, as I was driving out there, I was thinking about what I wanted to listen to, if I was going to listen to a podcast, if I was going to listen to, an audiobook or whatever. And I ended up listening to the beginning part of this podcast by Meat Eater. So, Steve Rinella from Meat Eater, he had a couple of his, he had a Aldo Leopold specialist, someone that he grew up with that was really into Aldo Leopold, and you guys probably may not, you might know, but you may not know who Aldo Leopold is, so I'll give you guys some background information there in a second. But essentially, he's this conservationist, was around in the early to mid 20th century, so I'm not sure exactly when he was born, around the 1900s, and like that sort of decade. 18 some to 1900. But anyway, he's kind of like this leading conservationist, right? Everyone, whenever they think of conservation, whenever they think of wildlife conservation, they think of number 1, Teddy Roosevelt. Number 2 is Aldo Leopold. And then there's really, some gaps in between, who would be considered the next runner-up there. But those two are kind of like the leaders. And Aldo's a bit different. He wasn't a politician or anything like that. He was a forester. He was a forester. He was a farmer. He was a scholar. He went to, oh my gosh, I keep forgetting what I believe it was the Harvard School of Forestry. I could be wrong there. It's either Harvard or Yale. Let me look it up real fast. But essentially, this dude, very well versed, Renaissance guy. He he could speak to all different sorts of people, right? He couldn't be lumped into one category. Oh, I got a fish. Oh, stay on there, stay on there, stay on there, stay on there, stay. Haha, nice. Got a little fish for you guys while I'm out here. As I was looking up Aldo Leopold's college. But anyway, this guy, Aldo Leopold, cool dude, right? He spent some time in the forestry, did a whole bunch of stuff for conservation. Right, let me get this guy unloaded real quick so I can finish my train of thought. If you guys listen to this on Spotify, I urge you to go check it out on YouTube because I got a nice little fish right here. Hopefully you can still see me. Yeah, look at that thing. Nice little smallie. Little tiny guy. I'm also recording a YouTube video while I'm out here, but yeah, this is there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on for sure. But I'm glad I caught that fish. Show you guys that I actually am fishing. So where was I at? All right. Aldo Leopold, right? So this guy, little bit of life story, went to the Harvard or Yale, I believe it was Harvard, School of Forestry. Got his degree in forestry. And really the only thing that someone could do at that point in time was join the Forest Service. And the Forest Service was just kind of getting its legs and was a very, very new organization. Very new. And what they primarily focused on at that point in time was just forest products. So like they were focused on wood harvest and basically made all of their decisions around wood harvest and making sure that they were supplying the demand for wood. Because, you know, America during that time, obviously very growing nation. There was a lot going on, a lot of expansion and things like that where they needed to supply a lot of wood for these houses. So he gets sent out to New Mexico essentially, or Arizona, I'm sorry. And keep in mind that this is a point in time where Arizona was not even a state yet. It was just the Arizona territory. Now, whenever he gets sent out there, spends a lot of time on horseback, riding around, surveying this land, telling the Forest Service how much wood they have available, how much wood can they produce from this land, and all of this stuff. And essentially, what he does, and the most iconic thing that Aldo Leopold did was told the Forest Service basically, listen, there might be some wood out here, but there's not enough to warrant us destroying land. His argument was that he believes that the land adds more value to them just being how it is with no roads or anything like that than the amount of wood that would be valued like market value. It's more valuable to be kept as is than harvesting all the wood. And this was a very radical concept, much like Roosevelt whenever he was trying to pass a whole bunch of conservation laws, making public land, designating national parks, things like that. Very controversial. It was like if you think about in today's political climate, it would be like far, far radical left-wing ideology. People did just criticize it to no end. And looking back now, good thing that he was steadfast in his, in his decision making, in his thought process, because man, he did a great job. What he ended up doing, his biggest accomplishment, was designating wilderness area in that area, the Gila Wilderness Area in Arizona. And it's a beautiful spot. I've never been there. I hope to go there here soon. But man, what a guy. And I'm talking about that right now for the sole reason of I listened to his whole book on the ride there and back. It's a Sand County Almanac. That's what it's called, Sand County Almanac. And probably it was a 4.5 hour listen. Not a super long book, and how they constructed this book. It's not like he sat down and he wrote it, just straight up wrote it from front to back. It was a collection of articles that he wrote, published to different magazines and things like that. So it's a little bit not jagged in the way that you read it, because whenever you read it, it seems like it flows very well, but the chapters are different. They're different sections of his life. It's basically his life work is constructing this. Oh, well, writing these articles, and he's writing these articles for magazines and publishers and things like that. And eventually, whenever he passed away, his kids took those articles to a book publisher and got the whole thing published. Now, it might be strange as to why I just went through that whole entire 10 minutes talking about this random guy that a lot of you guys might not know about. But it really kind of struck a chord with me because, as you know, I am such a fan of wild places, wild areas, wild experiences. Much like what I'm doing today, you know, there might be houses, you might be able to hear cars, trains, things like that, but this is still a relatively wild area. And what Aldo Leopold, his kind of like mantra, is to always be taking care of the land, even if it might not be wilderness, 550,000 acres of wilderness. He's under the mindset of, even if you have a small, little, tiny section of land, you need to manage it to accommodate the vast, vast ecological diversity that land can possess. So he had a farm and everything, and he talks a lot in this book about the woodcock and how he was creating habitat for woodcock, how he was creating habitat for songbirds. And this guy, keep in mind, was also a hunter. He loved fishing, and he loved eating wild food, as a lot of people did back then, mostly out of necessity. But this guy was under the opinion and kind of just understood the fact that if he took care of his land was going to take care of him. And I think that's a really strong message. And a lot of people, I think, in America nowadays, they lose sight of the fact that this country was essentially founded on land that could sustain a lot of people. This was kind of like the promised land when people were coming over from Europe and from other countries. This was the promised land of big game, wild game. Some would consider the West as the Serengeti of the West. So the Serengeti in Africa, just game everywhere. That's what they considered the United States whenever people came over. There were buffalo everywhere. There were deer. There were elk. There were moose in Pennsylvania. There were wolves in Pennsylvania. I mean, we've come a long way from that, obviously. And that's where Aldo Leopold's kind of getting at, is that humankind has kind of destroyed wilderness. They've kind of destroyed the ecological balance of things. Importing non-native species, like right now I'm fishing for carp, or I'm fishing in a river with carp in it. Very non-native destructive species. These banks are covered with non-native vegetation and things like that. So humans have kind of ruined the landscape in a way, but he understands that. But at the same time, he understands that we can make a difference. Us as humans can make a difference. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that a lot of people don't really care to understand the wilderness. They don't care to understand the wild. And, I get it. I mean, there's no real value in it in today's day and age. You're not surviving on the fish that you catch or the animals that you kill. You're surviving from the store. Other people are taking, farms. Farms are raising meat. You're surviving off that meat. Farms are raising vegetables. You're surviving off the vegetables. I get it, all right? There's not a whole lot of economic sense in trying to pursue your own food. It just doesn't make sense. But what Aldo Leopold shares in this book, and what he was incredibly passionate about, was that it shouldn't be like that. You should care for the land. You should learn how to understand native vegetation and understand, where everything fits into place. Humans are part of the the equation. They're part of the landscape. We've done what we've done. We can't go back in time and change it. But he knew, and he knows. Well, he doesn't know anymore because he has passed away, obviously. But he knew that in order for humans to take more value in nature, you need to give nature a value in and of itself. Much like big game, you give a deer a value. You have to buy a license to harvest a deer. You have seasons to harvest deer. You have meat that you can collect off that animal, and that then adds value to your life. Now, how do you do that with plants? With songbirds, where there's not enough meat to, it gives you a quarter of a meal. How do you add value to that? And that was his kind of life's work, and his biggest struggle was finding ways to add value. And same thing with wilderness, what he did. What good to a normal person, normal everyday person that, goes to work, goes home, likes to hang out, likes to go out to eat. What value does wilderness have to that person? And the answer is probably not a lot, honestly. And it's kind of a shame. I mean, it really is. For someone that values wilderness so much and values wild places so much, it is a shame. But I think that the reason that happens and the reason that that's the case is because, people have been so removed from wilderness. Oh, got another one. There we go. And I'll continue my thought here in a second. Got another little fish, another little bass. Oh, this is the spot right here. Nice slow-moving water. Come on, come on, come on. Don't let me forget, all right? I'm keeping in mind wilderness, why people don't engage with it much anymore. Man, these things fight like crazy, these little smallmouth. Like, this thing's a little 12-incher, and, he's giving me a run for my money a little bit. Oh, he's on my squirmy wormy. I'm nymphing right now, so I got a woolly bugger on, and then I also got like a little rubber worm. And this one's on the rubber worm, and I'm a little bit nervous because that rubber worm, I already lost a fish off of that rubber worm today. And the reason I lost it, and it was a big fish too. It was a big one. The reason I lost it is because the worm bent, the hook bent. I'm going to grab my net. Man, this guy's feisty. This is why I love catching fish on the fly. It just makes it that much more interesting. All right, come on. Time to come in. There we go. Nice. That's 2 fish. Sweet. Just like that. Check her out. I mean, these fish are so gorgeous. Some of them got that red eye. This one's got a black eye, but they awesome fish. We don't have very great trout fishing in PA, but I'll tell you what, we do have some decent smallmouth fishing. That's for sure. Sweet. 2 fish on the podcast. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's get that line back out. And what was I talking about? I was talking about wilderness. I was talking about why people don't engage with wilderness much anymore. And, I forget exactly what I was getting at there. But what I was thinking about and what I think is going to be my purpose, and, that might sound crazy, but, hey, I mean, people called Aldo Leopold crazy. For for doing the wilderness, designating wilderness and things like that. So, I mean, if people are calling me crazy, I guess I'm doing something right. And my crazy idea that I'm talking about is that I want to work to standardize curriculum around conservation. I'm thinking about whenever I was in high school, I had no classes. No, I take that back. I had one class, and it wasn't even like a mandatory class. It was an elective, might I add you, where I was learning about I was learning about ecology. I was learning about wild things, wild stuff, wild animals. And I think that is a huge oversight for us. I mean, there's this movement right now. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. The environmental movement. We're trying to save our environment. We're trying to save these places, save these rivers, save these streams, save the woods. Yet we're not teaching it. We're not teaching it in school. We're not adding cultural value to it. Now, I don't know. I've been out of high school for however many years, almost 10, I'm sure. And no, not almost 10, more like 7. But anyway, I've been out of high school for long, so it could have changed, but also it might not have. And why are we not focusing on that? If we want to save the earth, we want to stop pollution, we want to stop, mitigate is the key thing, because you can't really stop pollution. I mean, there's just so much that rides on fossil fuels and like heavy equipment, machinery, and things like that. But to be able to mitigate our negative impact on the environment and eventually get to the point where we are neutral in the destruction we're causing. So instead of causing destruction, we're also saving it a little bit. We're also mitigating our impact. But I think what we have to do here is we have to make it valuable to children specifically, because once those children grow up, guess what? They're gonna associate value with wild places and wild animals. Now, might not seem like hard, or I don't know what you guys might think about that, but I think that is where we need to start. We need to start adding value, sharing with our children that these fish have value, that these rivers have value whenever they are clean, whenever they have diverse species living in them, all the way down to the microorganisms, to the bugs, to the plants at the bottom, to the algae. It all matters. It all matters, and that is what I took away from his book. Now, it might have been a little bit roundabout, because we got some other stuff going on, a roundabout way to get to where I was talking, but that's just how I feel. That's what I took away, and I hope that over the coming episodes and the coming shows that I bring out, I can convey that message, and I can convey it properly to people so that they can understand and add, place value on these ecosystems. Because if you wanna believe in the climate crisis, or if you wanna whatever, I don't want to talk political, and I don't think that should be considered political, but you just gotta know that there is no arguing that we are in a moment in time where more species are going extinct than ever before. Basically on the scale of whenever the dinosaurs went extinct. That's where we're at right now. Obviously not to that point, because there was there was a giant asteroid that hit the Earth and basically killed everything except some minor little tiny things like bugs and stuff like that. But we're at that point where species are going extinct, and it's just we need to take action. And take accountability. You know, there's these big corporations that are doing a lot of bad things. Not all of them are bad. Keep in mind, not all of them are bad, and I think they're inherently good. At least people are inherently good at heart, but adding value and not necessarily dismissing wilderness. Add value to it. Share that with people. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. Really appreciate you guys listening, tuning in. I know this episode was kind of all over the place. It's just a little thought, a little snippet into my mind as I'm out here fishing. And yeah, it's a beautiful day, and I'm glad that I can share it with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Something in the Wild, and make sure to keep it wild.